crowded mall, two cops grab a terrified teenage girl, mocking her claim that her mom's in the special forces. "Sure she is, kid," one laughs. But when a black SUV screeches to a halt outside, and a woman in full combat gear steps out, medals gleaming, eyes burning, the laughter dies instantly. Among the crowd, 17-year-old Kayla Morgan walked quietly, holding a small bag of art supplies she'd just bought for school. Her soft curls framed her calm face, but there was something distant in her eyes, like she was somewhere else entirely. Then came the voice, sharp, loud, authoritative. "Hey you, stop right there!" Two police officers broke through the crowd, their badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Shoppers froze. Kayla turned, startled, as one officer, Sergeant Daniels, tall and hot-tempered, pointed directly at her. "You think you can just walk out without paying?" he barked. Kayla's eyes widened. "What? No, sir, I paid. Look, I have the receipt." She fumbled with her bag, but before she could pull it out, the second officer, Patrolman Reed, grabbed her wrist. Daniels snatched the bag, spilling its contents on the floor, pencils, brushes, a sketchbook. "Doesn't look like something a thief could afford," he sneered. "Where'd you get the money, huh?" Kayla's cheeks flushed. "I told you, I paid for them, my mum—" "Oh, here we go," Daniels cut her off with a mocking laugh. "Let me guess, your mom's some big shot, right?" Kayla hesitated, her voice trembling. "She's in the military. Special forces, actually." That sentence hung in the air for a heartbeat before both officers broke into laughter. Reed shook his head. "Special forces? Kid, you're in a denim jacket and sneakers, don't insult us." Daniels leaned closer, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "What's next? She's off saving the president?" "I'm telling the truth." Kayla's voice cracked, tears burning behind her eyes. "She's deployed overseas. She's a staff sergeant with—" "Enough!" Daniels snapped. "You kids need better lies. There's no way someone like you has a mom in special forces. You think we're stupid?" People started filming. Phones raised, whispers spread. A woman nearby muttered, "Poor girl," while another whispered, "Why are they being so rough?" But the officers didn't care. Reed roughly twisted Kayla's arms behind her back. The sound of the handcuffs clicking echoed louder than the mall music. "Please, stop! I didn't do anything wrong!" Kayla cried. Daniel smirked. "Save it for your imaginary soldier, Mom." He turned to the crowd. "This is what happens when people think rules don't apply to them." Kayla's heart pounded. She felt every stare, every whisper slicing into her pride. Her mother had told her to stay strong in the face of injustice. If you ever face fear, she'd once said, look it in the eye. So Kayla did. She lifted her chin, meeting Daniels's glare. "You'll regret this when my mom gets here," Daniels chuckled. "Oh, we'll be waiting." He turned to his partner. "Let's call social services. Maybe they'll send someone before her special forces mom parachutes in." Reed laughed as they led Kayla toward the security office. The crowd parted, uneasy but silent. No one dared to step forward. Inside the small, glass-walled office near the food court, Daniels threw Kayla's bag on the table. "Empty your pockets," he ordered. Kayla's voice was small but steady. "You're making a mistake, kid," Daniels said, leaning close enough for her to feel his breath. "I've been a cop for 15 years. I know when someone's lying. And you're lying." Kayla didn't respond. She simply looked past him, out through the glass toward the main entrance. A distant sound began to rumble outside, tires screeching. A low growl of an engine. Daniels frowned. What now? Then, thud, matte black SUV slammed to a stop right at the mall's main entrance. The echo of boots hitting the marble floor followed, crisp and heavy. Heads turned. The murmurs grew into gasps. A woman stepped into the light, tall, muscular, and radiating quiet power. Her combat boots glistened. Her uniform bore insignias few civilians recognized but every soldier respected. Across her chest, Staff Sergeant Naomi Morgan. She moved like a storm contained, steady, deliberate, unstoppable. Her gloved hands rested near her holster, her jaw tight with fury. Daniel's smirk faltered as he saw shoppers scattering, whispering her name. "Is that military?" he muttered, suddenly unsure. Reed peeked through the office glass. "She's headed this way, man. Fast." Before either officer could react, the security office door slammed open with a force that rattled the frame. Naomi's voice cut through the air, calm but laced with ice. "Take your hands off my daughter." Every word hit like a bullet. Daniel straightened, trying to hide his nerves. "Ma'am, this is police business. Naomi's glare froze him mid-sentence. "I am Special Forces, Sergeant Daniels. And you just handcuffed a minor without probable cause." She pulled out her badge, embossed with a golden eagle, and her unit's insignia. "Would you like me to call your chief or the Pentagon?" The crowd outside gasped. Cameras rolled. Daniels' mouth opened, but no words came out. His face flushed red. Reed slowly stepped back, his hand shaking slightly as he fumbled for the keys. Naomi stepped forward, her tone unwavering. "Unlock her." "Now." The handcuffs fell with a metallic clink. Kayla rubbed her wrists, fighting tears, not from fear this time, but from pride. Naomi turned to her daughter, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "You okay, baby?" Kayla nodded, whispering, "I told them you'd come." The once smirking cop lowered his gaze. Every ounce of arrogance drained away. Naomi looked him dead in the eye. "Next time you mock someone," she said, "make sure you're not laughing at a soldier's child." The mall was silent. No one dared to breathe. And for the first time that day, Sergeant Daniels said nothing. The mall was frozen in silence. Even the faint pop music from the stores had been turned off, as Staff Sergeant Naomi Morgan stood, unwavering, in the center of the security office. The authority in her stance was undeniable. Years of discipline, of battles fought and commands obeyed, radiated from her presence. Every pair of eyes in that crowded hallway fixated on her. Sergeant Daniels swallowed hard. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by a nervous tremor. He glanced toward his partner, Officer Reed, whose jaw was clenched so tightly it looked painful. The crowd outside began whispering again, this time in awe. "That's her mom?" someone muttered. "She's Special Forces for real," another voice whispered. Naomi's uniform gleamed beneath the mall's fluorescent lights, her chest adorned with medals and ribbons earned through years of service. Her tactical boots tapped sharply against the floor as she stepped closer to Daniels, whose back nearly hit the wall. "Explain," Naomi demanded, her tone cold and surgical. "Why was my daughter detained? Why were your hands on her?" Daniels stammered. "Ma'am, we received a report. The cashier thought..." "Thought what?" Naomi cut him off. "That a 17-year-old girl with a bag of art supplies looked suspicious. Or that she looked out of place." Her voice rose, not in volume but in force. It was the kind of tone that made men in uniform stand straighter. Reed tried to step in. It was a misunderstanding. The clerk, Naomi's sharp glare, silenced him instantly. "A misunderstanding doesn't involve handcuffs and public humiliation. My daughter was treated like a criminal. You both mocked her, called her a liar, and laughed at her family. Tell me, Officer Reed, does your training encourage verbal assault too?" Reed's mouth opened, then closed again. He couldn't find the words. Kayla stood quietly beside her mother, her wrist still red from the cuffs. The strength in Naomi's voice gave her courage, but her heart still pounded with leftover fear. Watching her mother command the room reminded her of every story Naomi had ever told, about standing firm, no matter who tried to intimidate you. Naomi took a deep breath, trying to maintain control. "You two don't realize how dangerous your assumptions are," she said. "You didn't see a student, you saw a stereotype. You didn't see a young woman, you saw a suspect." Daniels exhaled shakily. "Look, we were just doing our job." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "Your job? Your job is to serve and protect, not humiliate and degrade. Tell me, was your job also to laugh at a soldier's sacrifice? To teach a child that truth means nothing when spoken by the wrong person?" The room went quiet again. Even the security guards at the door didn't dare move. Naomi finally turned to Kayla. "Did they hurt you?" Kayla shook her head. "No, Mom, just scared me. They didn't believe me." Naomi nodded softly, then turned back toward the officers. "Then believe this," she said, pulling a small folder from the side pocket of her tactical vest. Inside were her identification papers, military clearance, assignment reports, and a photograph of her standing with her unit in Afghanistan. The seal of the U.S. Department of Defense glistened in the corner. Daniels blinked at the documents, his throat dry. "Ma'am, I didn't know." "That's the point," Naomi said. "You didn't know. You assumed..." She stepped closer, her boots thudding against the tile. "You assumed my daughter was lying because you couldn't imagine that a soldier, especially a black woman, could raise a child with dignity and strength." The crowd outside erupted in murmurs again. Some were filming, others nodding in agreement. At that moment, a mall security supervisor rushed in, panting. "Sergeant Morgan," he said, recognizing the insignia on her shoulder, "we've contacted local command. They're on their way." Naomi nodded curtly. "Good." Then she turned toward Daniels one final time. "You will apologize to my daughter, publicly, the same way you mocked her." Daniels hesitated, shame washing over his face. Reed nudged him silently. Finally, Daniels faced Kayla, his voice trembling. "Miss Morgan," he said, eyes low, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I was wrong." Kayla's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "You didn't just speak to me like that," she said quietly. "You spoke to every kid you thought wasn't worth believing." The words hit harder than any reprimand Naomi could have given. Daniels looked away, unable to respond. Moments later, 2 uniformed officers from Internal Affairs arrived. They saluted Naomi before escorting Daniels and Reed out of the room. The crowd outside parted in silence, watching as the same men who'd mocked Kayla were now being questioned under Naomi's authority. Naomi turned to her daughter, her voice softening. "You did good, sweetheart. You kept calm." Kayla exhaled shakily. "I try to remember what you always say. Don't let fear speak for you." Naomi smiled faintly. "And you didn't—" She tucked a loose strand of hair behind Kayla's ear. "Now, let's get you home." As they walked out of the mall together, the crowd broke into quiet applause. Shoppers, mothers, veterans, people who'd stood frozen moments ago, now watched in admiration. Naomi didn't wave. She didn't smile. She simply placed an arm around her daughter's shoulders and led her through the glass doors, the black SUV waiting at the curb. But as they stepped outside, Naomi's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her commanding officer's name flashing. Her expression hardened. Something was wrong. "Get in the car, Kayla," she said softly. "Mom has to handle something." Kayla frowned. "Another mission?" Naomi hesitated, her jaw tightening. "Maybe." She turned her gaze back toward the mall's entrance, where flashing red and blue lights reflected in the glass. Whatever peace she thought she had earned that day was already gone. The engine of the black SUV rumbled softly as Naomi Morgan sat in the driver's seat, the phone still pressed to her ear. Her daughter, Kayla, sat quietly beside her, staring out the window, her reflection pale against the fading afternoon light. "Staff Sergeant Morgan," a deep voice said through the line. It was Colonel James Adler, her commanding officer. "We've got a situation, and we need you immediately." Naomi's stomach tightened. "Sir, I'm off duty. I just dealt with—" "I know," Adler interrupted. "And we saw it. The mall footage has already gone viral. Washington's seen it too. You handled yourself well, Sergeant. But we've got something bigger. Classified. You're being recalled." Her hand gripped the steering wheel. "Now?" "Now," Adler confirmed. "Blackbird Base. 1 hour." Naomi exhaled through her nose, steady but frustrated. She glanced at Kayla, who was now looking at her, eyes wide. "Understood, sir," she said before ending the call. A long silence filled the car. Outside, the sound of people still whispering about what happened inside the mall drifted faintly through the air. Kayla finally broke the quiet. "You're leaving again, aren't you?" Naomi sighed. "I don't have a choice, baby. Duty doesn't wait." Kayla stared down at her hands. "Every time they see you in uniform, I think people will finally understand who you are, but it's like they never really do." Naomi turned in her seat, gently lifting her daughter's chin. "You don't live for their understanding, Kay. You live for your truth. Today you stood tall. That's what matters." Kayla nodded, though her eyes glistened with unspoken fear. "What kind of mission is it?" Naomi hesitated, searching for words she could legally say. "It's about security," she said finally. "Something sensitive. Something dangerous." She reached over and brushed a tear from Kayla's cheek. "I'll be back before you know it," Kayla whispered. "That's what you said last time." The words cut deep. Naomi looked away, her gaze hardening as she watched the traffic ahead. "You're right," she said quietly. "But this time, I'll make it count." A moment later, she started the SUV and pulled out of the parking lot. The ride home was silent except for the low hum of the radio. News anchors already talking about the viral video of the Special Forces mother confronting police. When they reached home, Naomi's instincts kicked in. She moved fast, switching from civilian calm to military precision. She unlocked a hidden compartment beneath her hallway closet and began retrieving a small metal case. Inside were classified mission files, her service pistol, and her dog tags. Kayla stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You always say you're not supposed to take that stuff home." Naomi looked over her shoulder, half smiling. "You always say you're not supposed to skip curfew." Kayla cracked a small grin, then frowned again. "I just hate watching you leave." Naomi zipped her tactical bag shut and walked toward her daughter, pulling her into a firm embrace. "You're strong," she whispered. "Stronger than you think. And you're the reason I fight." There was a knock at the door. 3 sharp taps, perfectly spaced. Naomi stiffened. Only someone trained would knock like that. She opened the door to find Captain Avery Ross, her longtime teammate, standing there in combat uniform. His face was grim. "Naomi, they're already wheels up in 40. We need to move." Kayla looked from her mom to Avery. "Where are you going?" Avery exchanged a look with Naomi. "Somewhere important," he said softly, "and we'll bring her back safe, I promise." Naomi turned back to Kayla. "You know the drill. Go stay with Aunt Denise until I call." Kayla's voice trembled. "What if something happens?" Naomi knelt, gripping her daughter's hands tightly. "Then you remember this. No matter what you hear, your mom never stops fighting. Not for her country, not for justice, and especially not for you." Tears spilled down Kayla's cheeks as Naomi kissed her forehead. "I love you, Mom. I love you more." Avery cleared his throat. "We've got to roll." Naomi stood, slung the duffel over her shoulder, and followed him out. The sky had turned a deep amber, the last light of day cutting through the trees like blades. They climbed into a waiting military SUV. As it pulled away, Kayla stood on the porch, watching until the taillights disappeared down the road. Inside the vehicle, Naomi strapped in and turned to Avery. "What's the op?" He handed her a folder. "Code name Iron Vortex. Intel says a rogue faction has acquired military-grade explosives. The base needs every senior operative." Naomi flipped through the documents. "Location? Undisclosed. You'll be briefed fully on base," he replied. "But Naomi..." She looked up. "What?" Avery's tone softened. "Command knows about what happened today. They want you to understand, this mission isn't just about tactics, it's political now. You're the face of every soldier who's ever been underestimated." Naomi smirked faintly. "Then it's time they remember who I am." The SUV sped through the highway, city lights flickering past. Naomi stared out the window, her mind racing, not with fear but with purpose. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this mission was different. This wasn't just another operation. This was personal. Night had fallen over Blackbird Base, the elite training and operations compound hidden deep within the woods. The air buzzed with quiet urgency as helicopters thumped above and floodlights illuminated rows of armored vehicles. Naomi Morgan stepped out of the SUV beside Captain Avery Ross, her combat boots hitting the tarmac like thunder. The base was alive, soldiers rushing with crates of ammo, engineers running diagnostics, and the low hum of generators vibrating through the ground. It felt like the edge of war. Naomi adjusted her gloves and slung her rifle over her shoulder, the black fabric of her combat gear clinging to her movements with precision. She wasn't here as a mother now. She was a soldier, one of the most respected in her unit. And though her heart still ached from leaving Kayla behind, her mind had shifted into the zone of command. "Sergeant Morgan, welcome back," said Colonel Adler, approaching her from the operations tent. His face was lined with fatigue and intensity. "We've missed your fire around here. Just point me where you need me, sir," Naomi replied firmly. He handed her a digital tablet showing a satellite map. "Target is a militia camp on the outskirts of Ridgeport. They've acquired stolen explosives and classified equipment. Intel suggests they plan to use it on a government convoy. You'll lead Alpha Team. Ross, Vega, and Tran." Naomi nodded, scanning the map. "Insertion by air?" "Negative," Adler said. "They're expecting that. We'll send you in low ground, under radar. Stealth only. No collateral." Naomi's jaw set. "Understood." She turned to Avery. "Prep the team. We move in 20." Inside the gear tent, Naomi loaded her magazines with rhythmic precision. Each click of a bullet sliding into place echoed through her bones. This was where she belonged. As she strapped her tactical vest and adjusted her earpiece, Avery looked over. "You good?" Naomi gave a short nod. "Always," he smirked. "You know, when the story of you at that mall hit command, half the base started calling you Mama Vengeance." Naomi chuckled under her breath. "They can call me whatever they want. I just want the mission clean." Minutes later, Alpha Team assembled near a camouflage transport truck. Naomi gave her final brief. Short, sharp, decisive. "We move fast. Stay low. No one fires unless I say so. Eyes on me." Her soldiers nodded. "Yes, Sergeant." As the truck roared through the night, Naomi's gaze drifted briefly toward the distant lights of the city. Somewhere out there, Kayla was probably watching the news again, waiting, praying. The thought gave her a renewed calm. Ridgeport Hills, 2:43 a.m. The air was cold and damp. Fog rolled through the trees as Naomi's team advanced silently through the brush. She raised a fist. Halt signal. Ahead, faint lights flickered from a makeshift camp. Armed men milled around a cluster of crates marked with red hazard symbols. "Visual confirmed," whispered Tran. They've got enough C4 to blow half the state. Naomi nodded. Ross, flank left. Vega, you're with me. They moved like shadows. Every motion measured, every breath controlled. A guard turned, just as Naomi reached him. Her gloved hand clamped over his mouth, and in one fluid motion she brought him down silently. Avery's voice crackled in her earpiece. Perimeter secure. You're clear. Naomi crept toward the central tent. Through the flap, she spotted the leader, a scarred man hunched over detonators and blueprints. He was arming the first device. She mouthed, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, flashbang. Light exploded through the camp, disorienting everyone. Naomi stormed in first, disarming the detonator and slamming the leader to the ground. Vega covered the exits while Ross secured the explosives. U.S. Army, Naomi shouted. Hands where I can see them. The militia members froze. Within minutes, her team had them restrained, equipment secured, and the explosives disabled. Adler's voice came through comms, mission complete. Extraction inbound. Excellent work, Sergeant. Naomi exhaled deeply. Alpha team, fall back. As the helicopter hovered above, its blades chopping the fog, Naomi allowed herself one rare moment of quiet. She looked at the dawn breaking through the trees, the first light reflecting off her armor. For once, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. 2 days later, City Hall press conference cameras flashed. Reporters gathered around a podium where Naomi stood in full uniform beside Colonel Adler and the Chief of Police. Kayla sat in the front row, her eyes filled with pride. The police department had issued a formal apology for the incident at the mall. Sergeant Daniels had been suspended pending investigation, and the footage of Naomi's calm but fierce confrontation had spread across the nation. Today, the mayor said from the podium, we recognize Staff Sergeant Naomi Morgan for her exceptional service, both as a soldier and as a citizen, who reminded us what true strength looks like. Applause erupted. Naomi accepted the medal quietly, then gestured toward Kayla. My daughter is the real hero, she said into the microphone. She believed in me when no one else did. And that belief, that's what gives a soldier her purpose. The room fell silent, then rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Daniels, standing in the back, bowed his head. He hadn't been invited to speak, but his face said everything. Regret, shame, and respect. After the ceremony, Naomi walked to where Kayla stood. Her daughter threw her arms around her, tears streaking her cheeks. You did it, Mom. Naomi smiled. No, she said softly. We did. The cameras caught that moment. A mother and daughter, once mocked and doubted, now symbols of resilience and truth. And as they walked out of City Hall together, the world watched in silence, because sometimes respect doesn't come from words. It comes from what you prove when no one believes you.